I'm Dan Drake. This is Front Up on Geno TV and Channel 99. Our guest today is Nat Lowell, our old friend. Nat, what are we going to talk about today? What's your primary topic?
Well,
your primary.
You kind of told me that yesterday. Dirt
Go
and houses.
Dirt and houses. Go for it.
You know, so.
No, I think we can talk about it in different contexts.
Yeah.
There's a housing issue, and the housing issue really does not relate to where you build summer houses. It relates to where you can build housing that is usable. I'm not even going to use the
Don't
A
use
word,
the word affordable.
the A word, but usable by the year-round population.
Yep.
Many of whom live in pretty awful conditions now, just because there's not a lot else available, and quite a few. And then on the other hand, you've got the Paston development, which we've been talking about, and you on the one hand, where there are going to be one of my pet things, as you pointed out yesterday, apartments. There are going to be 250 apartments, roughly.
Yeah, units, not
units,
buildings.
Yeah, right.
Right.
And then 100 more houses, some of which will be subject to the A word.
Yes, the shy list.
Right.
Yeah.
The other hand, you've got the space across the street from where we're sitting now, which, as you pointed out before we got on the air, the subdivision's been allowed for a long time.
1955.
And the reason it was subdivided was because, at least according to them, the owners couldn't get permission to do certain things to the house from the HDC. That's a different topic.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to look at it from the perspective of, if you lived on Main Street like I did back in the day,
right,
it was just another part of the island. Now it's Main Street, Nantucket.
Right.
Okay? And so the value issue has made it so that if you sell, you're selling to a millionaire.
Right.
There's nothing that you can't stop that. We can't change that. And I'd like to, before we get into this, I mean, Dan, this issue is right now. Things are really smoking hot over here. Okay, the place is booming again. It's always booming every so often. I mean, it's been booming for years. I mean,
it's like a wave. It's like a wave coming into the beach.
I have listened to more statements over the last 30 years. When it ends, what are we going to do? It's never going to end. It's not going to ever end. After whaling, we had some problems.
Right.
And we just started developing Co-2, which is an interesting story. 25 houses on Co-2. We had power at Great Point. I mean, it was kind of another world. We thought Surfside was going to be downtown, and we kind of messed things up. And now we're sort of, I keep bringing this up. It's true. When the boat went to Hyannis year-round in 1985, is what opened the floodgates to new visitors, new investment. Your property value went really high in the mid-'80s from what it was prior. I mean, a lot of the lots out by where I am or out by the airport, the Braun subdivision, which people just say the Boulevard, but that was new then. There was no houses out there pre-1980. They were giving those lots away. I mean, it was $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 for a 2-acre lot. I mean, that's unthinkable. Okay, now they're worth $1 million or more, or somewhere in that area. So, on one hand, local people that have bought in back in the day don't want to lose property value. But on the other side of the coin, that's what's driving a lot of the problem with, I don't want to say the A word, but a place that you can afford to build a house.
Year-round housing.
And the cost to build a house on Nantucket is, $400 a square foot.
Right.
So, I mean, everything is against the middle-class person to build here or to own here.
Right.
But it's all things that we wanted. We wanted more open space. We have large zoning tracts, Lug 3, 68% of our private property is in Lug 3. That's 3% ground cover. So what does that mean? 97% of the land, you can't do anything with it other than a swimming pool.
Right.
Because that doesn't count against ground cover. So planning has been getting a little bit of, I would say, unjust criticism. People think we're chopping up the island. No, the island, you can chop your lot legally if you have frontage and you have a larger lot than your zoning district. I mean, anybody can do it. It's not something new. but people choose not to do it for if and when, whatever reason they do it, whether it's to sell, whether it's family, it doesn't matter. I think the other issue that people are not talking about enough, and this is really the local side of it, is the redevelopment of land. Most of the building permits that you're seeing are not new, virgin soil,
Right.
never been touched,
Right.
doesn't have a wire in the ground land. That's not the case. It's mostly land that either has something on it. They're moving houses like couches now. I mean, literally, it's amazing, and it's a good thing. Back, when my dad was building houses, they would build it where it looked good. A better view. Turn it this way. They weren't thinking about ground cover, zoning, splitting. They weren't thinking about any of these things back then, and now they're lifting them up and moving them or tearing them down and changing the property around, like you're seeing.
Across the street from where I live.
Is it out there too?
Yes.
I haven't been out your way in a while,
Yeah.
so I
Right
haven't
across
seen
the
it.
street.
All right. Well, you've got the one I think about is the Dr. O'Neill's property on Surfside. That's a good one to
Right.
use. And the Marks property on Hooper Farm was already bigger than the zoning district. That's an R10 zone. It was a half acre. The family sold it, subdivided. They should. That's what they should have done. So in theory, I don't see that as more building. I see that as building that was going to happen.
And
you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
It's
it's become, in one sense, a necessity because of the fact that so much of the island is in conservation.
well, we need to talk about that.
Yeah.
Now, Dan, I'm going to make a little joke. I don't want you to get mad at me. But
No problem.
less people are flying now, so we don't look at the open space as much out the window. And it's true.
That's true.
And when I rattle off some of these numbers that we've recently got, I've kind of going to say it now. It's been kind of holding it in. I tell people here and there. But the amount of ground cover on Nantucket, we had this question come up a year ago, and it's been calculated. It's under 2%. It's getting close to 2, but it isn't there yet. Now, when you think about that, and we complain about too many houses, it's almost impossible to make the argument. We saved Nantucket before people even got here.
Right.
Roy Larson, in 1963, started the Conservation Foundation. People were giving their land away, whether they were selling it or whether they were giving it away. It wasn't worth anything.
Right.
Then came the land bank, which just before people started really showing up, when the original, I don't want to say trophy homes, but nicer summer seasonal homes started in the mid 80s. With Lee Dunn and Steve Lindsay and Sam Hill. Those builders were starting those kind of houses out in Quidnet and in different places. In Eel Point Road just started to get developed on the right hand side in the mid 80s. And that's when the land bank started at the same time. So, and I'm fine with that. But I want people to know the facts. We need to realize that Nantucket was preserved before it got like this. If it was reversed and we hadn't had conservation, you got a problem now. Okay, that's different. So it's just the facts. I mean, you just have to understand that. We also, another thing that I want to talk about with you is, back on your apartment thing, it was never legal. We couldn't even build them so recently. So it takes time for these things to happen. You just don't pass something at town meeting and the next day you got 10 units being built. That's not going to happen. So we're going to see our first real true apartment buildings built on Nantucket in the next, year or so, and it's something that I think we fixed it in CMI. We have commercial mid-island zoning now, and we have 40-foot height now, which is good. You can't really build an apartment at 30 feet.
Right.
It doesn't work mechanically. So we've gotten more zoning districts where they should be, where the people are, where everybody's working. But it's going to take time for this to materialize. So, sorry.
That's all right. I think it's very interesting. And the one question which we talked when we spoke yesterday that you have very strong feelings on, and I think you should share them, is the response to people who say, well, it's too crowded, it's too there's just too many people here.
The people number is starting to happen now. I never thought we'd get to that. We pass cars. We that's how I got involved with the town.
Right.
Is the whole car limitations insane idea. I mean, it sounds easy to talk about it, and then when you actually try to implement it, it's who goes first. It's like walking the plank. Okay, but when you start saying that we're gonna there's this arbitrary feeling that there's too many people, and what's that number? That's when things starting to get really ridiculous. Okay. On one hand, we complain that people are leaving. The next thing we do is complain that they're coming. They've been leaving for years. They've been coming here for years. People leave. Families, when you see somebody pass away in the newspaper, sadly, I'm just using this as an example, and you see where their family members are living. They're not here. They used to be.
Right.
Is that wrong? It's a decision that people make. You can't say that we have a problem because people leave. People were leaving when dirt was cheap. It isn't just now, okay? So it's jobs, it's marriage, it's kids, what they end up doing. I mean, we've got Julie Isle. They're leaving. I mean, they have a reason to leave, but they're leaving.
But everybody.
You know what I'm just saying? I mean, everybody has a reason.
Yeah.
So I don't get worked up over this. I don't get worked up about the people coming on the boat to work here either. I don't. That's a subject that gets thrown around sort of and see what sticks. Well, these guys aren't buying anything here, or they're not paying their fair share. Okay, they don't need a house.
They don't need schools.
They don't need schools. It's part of the balance. You got to look at the fast ferry in the first boat of the day as you or I working in Wellesley, but we live in
We're working in Boston.
Lexington, and we drive to this job in our truck, and
we take the train into
or
Boston.
whatever.
Yeah.
Here is different, so we're not looking at it like that. But that's how we have to look at it. And it's part of they're driving to Nantucket without a car to work.
Now, and you and I have had these discussions about the fast ferries and so forth before. But putting that aside per se, you now have the issue of a boat coming in 6 times a day that holds 500 people.
Not yet.
Well, it will
unfortunately.
be. Yeah, but it's supposed
complicated.
to be.
It doesn't.
But when it comes,
I got all the answers to that.
No, but when it
comes, okay.
No, you haven't even heard my question.
I know what you're gonna say because everybody's been saying the same thing.
You mean about
what are we gonna do with all these people? Here's the answer. Have we turned anyone away before?
No.
That's it.
But
they're going to come anyway. They're going to come on the slow boat. They're going to come on a different boat. If you look at the numbers, you know that certain trips are.
But this is the point.
Okay. Go ahead.
If they are evenly spaced throughout the day as much as possible, it's different than if a huge mass.
No, but they still are. The reason that they got the high capacity is really for us. They're going to take care of us in the winter now. All right. The High Line is doing us a favor. They are our year-round boat.
Well, I don't want to. I know
you don't want to do it, but it's true. And I'll tell you, the local Nantucket year-round families, the schools, the sports teams have gotten so used to this system working that they've built their own, individual worlds. Whether it's the sports teams issue or what other, related issues they have in this boat running 5 trips a day. I just want to mention
one word, and that's competition, and there is none of that.
We don't need it in the winter. Because then somebody's going to lose. They run the large boat this winter. We're not going to have the locals upset.
Anyway, it's the right thing. All right.